the committee. So, Garyana, can we kindly call the roll in order to establish quorum, and then we'll ask the CAB members to identify themselves and their region.
Yes. Latanya Thompson,
Present.
Raina Moore,
Be here.
Renee Hurley.
Present.
3 members are present. Quorum is established.
We'll do introduction. I am Latanya Thompson from West County.
I'm Rena Moore from East County, Antioch specifically.
I'm Renee Hurley from West County.
Introduction of staff, and then we'll have after them the county agencies.
Hello, my name is Garyana Youngblood, and I'm with the ORJ.
Hi there, Jill Ray with Supervisor Candace Anderson's office.
Okay, and I apologize, I'm seeing Nicole and Ozzy on if you want to introduce yourself.
Good morning, Ozzy Carter, CAB board member and chair.
Good morning, everyone. Nicole Green, CAB board member and vice chair.
You. So prior to moving to the announcements, let's set the table for decor in this forum. Person who wish to address the Community Advisory Board doing public comments or matters within the jurisdiction of the CAB that are not on the agenda or wish to comment with respect to an item on the agenda may comment in person, via Zoom, or via call-in. Those participating in person should make public comments when called upon. Those participating via Zoom should indicate they wish to speak by using the raise your hand feature in the Zoom app. Those calling in should indicate they wish to speak by pushing *9 to raise your hand and *6 to mute and then unmute their phone. As a courtesy of others, public comments will be limited to 2 minutes per speaker. Let's pause a moment and review our purpose. The purpose is to advance justice reinvestment and protect community investments. Some of our responsibilities are in programs related to policies around both existing and new funding opportunity, with a focus on evidence practice, local, regional, and national intervention, and recommendation for implementation. Engage providers to educate CAB and our committee members about their work, outcome, needs, and recommendation. Promote a structure for and implementation of a comprehensive need assessment for the county reentry population, what's working, what's needed, to inform future programs, recommendation, funding, and allocation. Participate in program and service related RFP development process and panels by assignments from committee chairs and our CAB overall. And then I just want to say a thank you to everyone for their commitment. Now, continuing on with our agenda. Are there any announcements from the board?
I don't have any at this time.
Any announcements from Ozzy or Nicole?
I don't have any announcements. Thank you.
Thank you.
I do, but they'll be at the full cap.
Okay. Any announcements from Jill?
I have nothing at this time.
Thank you. If there are no announcements at this time, what we will do is approve our minutes from the March 21st CAB meeting. And that's on attachment 1, page 4 to 6. If we can bring those up. Take a moment to review them, and then we'll vote.
I was absent, I can abstain, right? Or I'm supposed to abstain, right?
So this is going back to
The March one?
March, because there wasn't a meeting in April.
Okay, so March I wasn't there.
Okay,
I saw the meeting, but
okay.
wasn't present.
We need you to motion.
Okay. I motion that the approval of record of action of the meeting on March 21st.
Yes, March 21st. I second the motion. And then if we can move forward to vote.
Okay, I have a motion and I have a second. Raina Hurley, how do you,
Jane Hurley?
No, Rena,
Mhm.
because I call you Renee, call you Rena.
sorry, Renee Hurley, I say aye or yes to the approval of the record of action from the March 21st meeting.
Yes.
Rena Moore,
I wasn't present at the meeting, so do I abstain? I'm gonna abstain, I guess.
okay. Latanya Thompson,
Yes,
2 yeses, motion carries.
thank you. So we're gonna move on to the update in custody feedback process approach. I'm not sure what that is. Okay, I know what that is. Okay, so the last meeting, what we discussed is that we were not going to actually go into the facilities to actually educate the staff as well as those that are in custody. We're gonna follow the same process as we did a year before, where we allow them to distribute it on the tablets to those that are incarcerated. Do you know when we can move forward with that? I know we were communicating back and forth with the process.
Are you saying like, are you looking for a date for when you could
When we can
distribute?
actually begin to yes, since we're not actually going in there. And then I think we answered all the questions they had for us back in March. So can we move forward with actually starting the process to have them uploaded on the tablets and then distribute to those that are in custody?
I'm sorry, I'm catching the tail end of this.
Okay.
Can we?
Can we go back?
Yeah,
Okay.
backtrack just a little bit.
Just a little bit, okay. So in March, we had been going back and forth on how we wanted to actually distribute the in custody. At one point, we were looking at actually.
The survey.
The survey, yes. At one point, we were looking at actually going in to kind of educate and to interact. After going back and forth, it would be lengthy. So we decided to just move forward with the process that we did the prior year. But this year we talked about, and I'm not sure if we're gonna have time to upload it on the tablets or if we would still need to use the paper and pencil method that we did the year before.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess that's something we can ask, the sheriff's office, because if it's intended to be a document that's uploaded on the tablets, so the survey would need to be formatted in a way where they can respond to it, and then their responses, when I say response, like actually go through the survey and select, right, various responses, and it has to then be transferred, the responses will have to be electronically transferred to whatever piece that could, so like, for example, I'm thinking of like an online survey, right?
Mhm.
Once you hit the submit button, the response goes somewhere. And so I don't know if their tablets have that kind of, if it's set up in a way where, because I don't know if it's that, say interactive, because from my understanding, the things that are placed on the tablet are just things that folks can use.
Mhm.
So like maybe pre-recorded videos, documents that they can read on and on. But to actually be an interactive interfacing piece, I don't know if those tablets are set up that way.
Okay,
So it's the tech part of it that makes me wonder if we are able to do like, let's say, a Survey Monkey type of thing.
okay,
You know?
okay,
Or a Google form, or, where we could develop a survey and somebody could, you just, and it is captured elsewhere. So we need to ask Jody, what's the
okay,
likelihood of that happening through
Okay.
the tablets?
okay. So that we're proactive and we utilize this time wisely. If it's going to be something lengthy meaning more than a month, which I'm sure it is. Are we okay with going back to the same method we used the year before, which is they have the paper, the pencil, it's distributed, it's collected, and then we hand the information over to be inputted to gather the data?
Sounds good.
My only concern would be like, are we gonna, I wanna make sure we get a lot of responses, like, with. Yeah, that's what I was.
Yeah, so a couple of things happened with that. I think we didn't have a long period of time for circulation, so we can definitely do that, improve on that, give folks a longer period of time to respond. So instead of, I think when we had a couple of weeks, we
Yeah, it
could
was like-
do like a month, 2 months, whatever we want to do there. That shouldn't be a problem. I think the challenge on our end is that when this last go round, when we created those open-ended questions, that was a lot harder for our data team to do what they call the thematic, what's the right word, Ariana? Do you know it? The coding that you guys had to do. for the-
Thematic analysis.
Yes. So, I don't know, you were somewhat part of the, or at least privy to the process, but I know that that was a bit of a challenge. So that is going to impact the analysis that you're going to want, basically the results from the survey collection, right?
Mhm.
So that would then mean if you're going to do a survey again, whether it's a paper copy or electronic, it would need to be either multiple choice option or basically a multiple choice option, no open-ended questions where they would fill in their comments. If you want, though, that kind of rich information, then I would recommend, instead of doing a survey, do what our partners over at RDA did it for that Cal AIM. Remember they presented
Mhm.
to you guys. They did their in custody information gathering with those that were inside focus groups. So that's where they're having, now that's a select few people, obviously, but now they're engaging them in conversation and able to capture what is being said and later do their own thematic, what is it again? Thematic, I'm not that research person. Thematic
Analysis.
analysis.
Okay.
So, anyway, so those are a couple of things to consider.
So with the focus group, we would need clearance to be able to go in, correct?
Yeah, well, you guys wouldn't do it. It would probably be a ORJ, research, team. folks
Okay.
that would do it. Because there's a whole method.
Okay.
It's a research method that's applied to be able to host these focus groups. They would create the kind of questions that would need to be asked. And all of that is planned out, so that way it's a little bit, quote unquote, easier on the back end to do the analysis for that.
Now, do we know the length of that process if we wanted
Oh, it's
to?
gonna be lengthy.
So it wouldn't happen this year?
No, it could, I mean, it could happen this year. We will have to work on well. We could plan for it this year. It would be later in the year though. Or plan to do it next year.
Okay. My concern is making sure we have enough data, because last year it was only one lady from all three facilities
Sure.
that did it, and then it was like, I think 90 something from all the other three.
Yeah.
And so I just want to make sure that we have data, especially since we're going to be working closely with the agencies, to make sure that what they're asking for is something that we can meet either in or outside of custody. So the more data information we have, will be helpful. I'm not sure if we could do both, like start the survey, and then see if we have time this year to go back and get additional data to kind of be like to, validate what we have, or to be able to ask those questions that may not have been clear, things that may come up that we may not capture. And one of the times we had an agency present, which we had no knowledge of, we didn't realize that there was no one for the Hispanic community. As far as there were different flyers being placed there, but they didn't know how to read. They didn't have anyone to help and support them in court, and that may have been something that would have come out in the focus group. It may not have been, but I just want to make sure that we're able to provide the services that are needed by having detailed, accurate information.
Yeah, so that would then depend on the kind of the questions you want to ask, to answer certain questions that you're looking to have answered. So, for example, I think the survey questions that were presented last time, it was quite a range to understand what the needs were and if they were familiar with certain organizations, right? Or
Mhm.
certain services that are available and what they anticipate their needs would be coming into the community. So, and we presented those results to you guys, albeit yes, it didn't cover as much in terms of the female population or women population. But you at least got something to go off of as a somewhat baseline to understand what they are identifying as their needs while inside and coming out to community. So, but if your question is more or less of what services do you need, now to augment those questions.
Okay,
So I would say for this group, compare the questions, look at the survey questions that were circulated last time.
okay,
Okay. And then based on that, what information you want to know now.
okay,
Otherwise, we'll be recirculating the same questions. You're going to get likely the same types of responses and answers. And I don't know if you learned anything new.
okay,
So think about that. Because we could apply whatever method makes the most sense and can be accommodated by the sheriff's office. But the more important thing to know is what information do you want to know from them, right? So that way you can frame your questions to ask to get that information from them.
Would we have time though to go back? Because last year we spent like 2 to 3 months even coming up with those questions. Because of the interaction from other people, changing the verbiage so that it was at a 3rd grade level. And so we're already in May. So even if we added to the agenda for June, we're looking at June, July, August for us probably to finalize it. And then September for us to even start the process. And then we still have to give and count how long it would take us to get it back to the appropriate people for us to even be able to enter that data to even get the information.
Yeah, it's just going to be a process regardless.
Right.
Even with the current one, let's say we do the same thing all over again, exact thing, it's going to still be a multi-month long process.
Okay.
We're also presenting this information back to you guys in this public format.
So can we just move forward with the same questions? And that way, if we have time for the focus later on, we can give them the questions that would need to be asked, but so we can at least get the ball rolling to get information, because that was the main focus last year, is that we didn't have enough time to interact to get the information to even look at it.
So is the concern here then just to have a greater pool of individuals responding to the survey, to the survey, or is it you want other information that was not already captured from the findings of the existing survey?
My focus would be to have greater population do the survey.
Okay,
Mine as well, just because it was only 98 in total and like 21 female and 97.
so what is because now keep in mind, not everybody responds to surveys. I do agree that it's definitely lopsided in terms of demographics, right? So another idea is that we could specifically survey the women modules with the same questions. That way, if we get 100 back from what now we have somewhat of a balance response view, and then you would have had 200 responses, albeit the first 100 would kind of, I don't even want to say, oh, it's still current, because we just did it. We just did it. So we could potentially do the same thing, but specifically for the women modules and see where we go from there. You may get 90, whatever, you may get 20,
Mhm.
you may, there's gonna be a variation. So, and we can extend the amount of time that takes place, right? Instead of doing, like I said, a couple of weeks. At least a month.
Right.
And then, that way, for those who are interacting with a lot of the women there, in terms of the agencies and what have you, they can make sure to also mention, hey, sure, fill out the survey. Blah, blah, blah. That's one way to go about it. And then we can bring that information back in terms of what those responses were, and you can compare that with the report and presentation we did for you guys. What was that, earlier this year, or was that toward the end of last year?
That's earlier this year.
Earlier this year, yeah.
Okay,
So that way it does feel more meaningful,
okay,
because I would hate for us to basically duplicate the same thing and you're gonna get the same outcome.
yes,
Then this was all for nothing, right?
Mhm.
So that might be one way to go.
yeah, I like that
That
idea.
sounds good.
Yeah, and then let's also remember, Jill shared that the number of male population is greater. Even if it's not 99 and it's, 40 or 50, that may be the same percentage of the male population that completed the form.
Yeah, yeah. So we can talk to the sheriff's office, we can talk to, Jody, over at Inmate Services to see if there's a way, and this may be a way we can text, right? Because we don't have to redo the questions. Now, with the exception of the feeling questions.
Okay,
So if you guys want to, we can send to you again what the questions were.
Mhm.
If you all can let us know whether or not we have permission, if you will,
Mhm.
or you direct us to say, hey, take off
okay,
the open-ended questions. And just keep it as multiple choice. That would certainly allow us to
yes,
respond quicker. And then we can also check in with Jody about the ability for them to do the survey on the tablet, and that we're able to receive the information from there.
okay,
My gut is saying that may not be possible, but we'll at least put in the ask. And then if that doesn't work, then we'll just go back to the circulating survey, paper and pencil.
okay.
So I have a question too. Can we make the survey available in multiple languages, not just English and Spanish, or?
I think we
Or-
only had Spanish, right? It's tough for us because we don't have translation services internally, like when
Oh.
we translated it, we went to one of our DPOs that speaks and writes in Spanish and was able to help us.
Okay,
So that's a limitation of course.
okay. Any other questions? Okay, so yes, if we could get it via email, if you have to send it to us individually, however, then we'll respond in a timely manner and we will move forward with that.
Yeah, so Garyana can send to all three of you. She'll blind copy all of you. She'll send it to the entire committee, and then you guys can respond to her. I'll probably be CC'd on, you can respond
Okay.
to us saying, what you feel, take this question out, keep this in, whatever. And then, mostly the open-ended. That's what we would.
Okay,
If you're in agreement with the open-ended questions, we can do that, and then we'll get in touch with, Sheriff's Office about seeing if we can, a timeframe to circulate.
okay. Thank you. Any other
Latanya,
questions? Yes,
Jenna had her hand raised.
what, we can't.
Oh,
'cause
sorry,
We can't
we
see
can't really-
anything.
hold on. The view on this thing, I'm
Sorry,
sorry,
Jenna.
y'all.
We apologize, we
no.
can only see you.
It's
There
okay.
we go. All right.
Okay,
No, so I was just gonna make the suggestion, if you choose to do the the tablet piece, I would also do the paper piece. Because not everybody in here, uses the tablet anymore. Some of them don't even have interest in touching it. So if you want to go that route, I would just encourage you to use the electronic and the paper. But I also agree with Patrice that the focus group would probably be the best way to get the type of information you want. And then also you might want to add the question, how long have you been incarcerated? Because that'll let you know that those who have been here longer may know programs and services versus those who have been here a week or two may not actually know what's happening yet. Because we do have people who come in here and they're only here for a short amount of time. They may not know anything yet, but the people who are here longer probably know a little bit more about what's available.
Thank you.
And Jana, do you know by chance if the tablets are, I guess I'm still thinking about, like, if we use a Google form for the questions or Survey Monkey?
So
Do you know? Yeah.
the tablet has a survey function on it. It's not Google Forms. It's not SurveyMonkey. It does have a function on it where people can complete surveys. My understanding is it does go to some type of data capture. But I would, Jody would probably have to, if she doesn't know it, she would probably have to reach out to the company and ask them how that's captured.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So we can't see everyone. Is any more hands up?
No.
Okay. Okay, perfect. We was not ignoring you. It was our view. Okay.
You can keep going.
Okay, so we're gonna move on to the next item, which is discuss finalized questions for CBO providers. So for the last couple of months, we've been working on questions for the CBO providers. And I kind of want to take a step back and get you guys' inputs. In reviewing the questions closely, it almost felt like it was an interview versus the opportunity to get to know the actual providers and what they do and their staff. I went back to some of the information we received from Crawford from the prior year where there was an Excel spreadsheet and there was a need to know like what each agency did and the county and some other things. And so I'm not sure if we're open to doing almost like a meet and greet where we go in there, we get to meet the entire staff, know their names and what they do, and ask basic questions, such as, their schedule, their office hours, what each individual do, if it's for in custody versus post custody, if it's for West County versus Central or East, is it for males versus females? One of the things that I want to do is be able to create like a directory, a foundation where we not only know like the agency as a whole, but what's inside the agency, and that we're able to identify what the gaps are. And with the information that we collected last year, wasn't able to identify what the gaps are. So that's one of the things that I kind of want to do. And then with that, if we were open to that, we would be able to then take the information and divide it into 3 categories. The 3 categories will be based off of what we pretty much always focused on, and that's employment, housing, and mental health. That way we can say, for instance, this is just an example, Renee would focus like on education and employment, you would do housing, and I would do mental health across West County. That way we could dive deeper, have meaningful conversations, and then be able to identify what the needs are. By going in and just focusing on just a agency, you know what that agency does, but you may not be aware of what the other agencies do and what overlaps. I kind of just wanted to throw that out there, get a feel for how you feel, what you guys want to do as well.
If we were to do something like that, that should include writing out like as far as like what's gender specific services they offer as well too. Pre and post release and stuff. If we were to do something like that.
I agree. I mean, so that's what it would be. And again, it's based off we're building, but I want to make sure that we have a strong foundation. And I want to make sure that when we go in there, not only are we aware of what the agency does, but that we're aware of who they serve in what area. Because I don't want to say, they do employment, but they only do employment, for West County and not East County or Central. And so we wasn't even sure like what the need was and what actually overlapped. So kind of taking a step back, building it. I think the information would also be helpful for the agencies to know, like, if Rubicon needed to reach out to Men and Women Purpose, who the staff is and what they do. I'm not even sure the agency knows that information.
They do.
Okay,
So we put together what we call the AB 109 Partner Directory that has a listing. It's mostly intended for as a staff directory to all of the AB 109 funded county agencies
Mhm.
as well as contracted service providers. So it includes their direct staff as well as some of their program or the management or administrative staff. So the agencies are aware of who to reach out to and
Okay.
contact, so that directory does exist. And then for all of the contracted agents, which you guys know, all the contracted agencies that coordinate resources together are able to do so through our shared data system of SAFE.
okay,
So that's where, cross referrals, if you will, and communication that takes place. We also, I want to say it's probably on a quarterly basis, our probation department holds case conferences. And so this is specifically for those individuals that are on AB 109 probation. And so those probation supervisors will typically send an email out to all the agencies to say, hey, you have certain names you'd like to nominate so we can come together and have, client conference or, conferencing around that respective client. So I think there's certainly different spaces where coordination is currently taking place. And as you know, Sheriff's Office doing its quarterly which is new, and it sounds like it was definitely needed and it's making some traction there. But then for all of those in custody service providers, that's a space where where different agency staff are able to coordinate and communicate.
okay. So I think we would still need to know like what program service they are provide for those in custody as well as out. So you have like you have like the basic of every person's name, email, phone number, and what they do as a whole. But could we still take that information and go in there and do a deeper dive to be like, what are the programs you offer to those that are in custody versus the ones that you offer to those outside of custody? And then like, is it for male population, the woman population, as well as the area?
So all of what's the best way to answer this? I feel like you already have this information.
Okay,
But I can run down the list for you in terms of the AB 109 community programs, which
Okay.
have, right,
Mhm.
these funding recommendations for. So you have 7 service providers. You have 1 for housing, which is Lao Family and Community Development. They serve both men and women. Okay. They don't do too much when we talk about in custody services. Many of these organizations are doing sort of like in reach or doing engagement with folks while they're inside prior to them being released. So the in custody part, many of them are linked up with game plan for success, as well as Men and Women of Purpose, who has you guys have your own separate contract with the Sheriff's Office where you're doing some engagement inside, and then you also make linkages to folks on the outside. Okay, so I would say Men and Women of Purpose specifically has a more unique role in that have a contract to provide services specifically inside,
Mhm.
and then you also have a contract to provide peer mentoring specifically in West County on the outside. Okay. All the other remaining agencies, Lao Family Community Development, which does housing, Rubicon Programs, which does employment, the Reentry Network and Reentry Success Center, who are navigation hubs, right, in Central, East, and West County. Bayer Legal Aid, which provides civil legal aid services. Many of them, the bulk of their programming is going to be outside in the community. But that does not mean that they do not connect with individuals prior to them being placed. Okay? So that there's that engagement that's happening, there may not be actual programming that's happening inside over a course of time. But I'll make an exception with the Reentry Network. I know they are hosting groups over at Marsh Creek. Success Center may be doing something similar. I don't want to, I can't quote it specifically, but that's sort of the dynamic there. Because each of those service providers are providing a service within a specific service area. So that is going to be the programming that they have available. That's mostly for out in the community, but they make connections with folks while they're inside to prepare them for that service.
Okay. And I guess because last year when we did the Excel spreadsheet with Crawford, there was a lot of things that overlapped. And then there was a lot of counties, a lot of part of like East and Central that didn't have resources. Even the Clean and Sober, I believe she was East County, and she didn't cover the other population for Contra Costa County.
Clean and sober.
The lady that presented that does the Clean and Sober, she actually goes into the facility and she works with them when they get out.
She was at a course.
Annette, it's called Annette.
Is it, she has the reddish hair?
Mhm.
Yes.
Okay. You said she has clean.
I think she said, did she do East or Central? She didn't do West County for Clean and Sober.
So
She
you're
goes
talking-
into West County as well, but not as often.
Cause she made it seem like she focused on East or Central.
So Center Force
Mhm.
actually has two contracts. Center Force has a countywide contract for family reunification.
Right. Okay.
So that's to serve any
That's,
region, right?
okay.
Then under the Reentry Network, through Help Right 360, they have a gender responsive case management service.
Okay.
Where the referrals for women that are going to Central East area, right? They then work with those individuals.
Okay.
And they often then go into the facility and, meet up with those folks while they're in there before they come out.
Okay. And again, it just goes back to the data that we collected last year that we didn't have time to go into depth with. And it was just about being clear and having a visual of the agencies, what service they actually provided, because some of them overlapped. And it could have been that when they were providing the information, they were providing information that they didn't actually do, but maybe they referred out, because Bay Area Legal was under a couple of different things that went outside of the legal aspect of it. So I just kind of want to be clear so that we can then say, let's focus on employment, on housing and mental health to see what we have and to make sure that the services are being met throughout Contra Costa for both genders, so that we're clear. So that was kind of the thing that I was hoping for, based off looking at notes from last year, looking at who we had to present. Like we didn't ask about, who has someone who's Hispanic or, or different cultures, whether they just speak Spanish, write Spanish, to make sure that we have those resources.
Okay. And that might be another survey option too, to survey the agencies, and we do a provider survey every year. Maybe we can adjust those to then include some of those questions. Do you provide services to women? And I should say it this way, I don't think any of the services exclude women.
Okay.
So that's, let's go there. But I do think that the question is, are there any gender specific or gender responsive services? Each agency will probably be willing, right, since they serve both gender, or since they serve both men and women, to learn how to be more gender responsive. But was their service specifically gender responsive? Probably not.
Okay. But could we take those questions and add them to our meet and greet so that we're actually asking those questions, so that we have a better idea of what programs they offer, who they offer them to, so that we can get so that it feels more like we're building a relationship, we're building credibility, but that we're interacting with them on a regular basis, not just a one-time, we go in there, we gather information, we walk away, and we don't come back to next year. Like, typically there's a spokesperson for each agency. So I met like a person. I didn't meet the entire staff. I'm not sure what your experience was.
Yeah, and that's probably, I mean, more likely than not, that's what they're gonna do.
Mhm.
But that would be the case for any agency. I think that, again, I would encourage you all to think about what is it that you're looking to do through this effort. If it's about building rapport and relationship, there's certainly a multitude of ways that can happen, such as the meet and greet or what have you. There are also partners and providers meetings, because you'll see all of them there. And a few CAB members have attended that in the past. We try our best to make sure that you all are getting those notifications. But so I think it's almost like two separate things. There's the wanting to get clarity on what's offered in-house in
Mhm.
terms of services per service area, and then what is referred out.
Mhm.
So, and I do recall, yes, we had that, you guys had that conversation wanting greater clarity and descriptions
Mhm.
from each of the, that grid
Mhm.
that's put together. So I can get back with my team and look at ways we could do that and bring that back to you guys, so that way you have something to start with. I would also encourage you to review back to the presentations, because all 7 organizations provided, PowerPoint presentations and identify what they do, how they do it, and all of that. So if there are still some unanswered questions from that, it
Mhm.
might be kind of like a study session that you all have
Mhm.
to write those questions down per agency presentation.
Because I'm actually like, when we do the presentations, like how she was talking about how like a lot of services, they said that they offered, but it wasn't them actually offering the services they referred out. So I guess I just need more clarity as far as that, like from the agencies, like what in-house services they actually provide and which are
Mhm.
referred out. Just a little bit more clarity. Yeah. Some of them said in their presentations,
Yeah.
not everybody did, from my recollection.
Yeah.
Latanya? Nicole has her hand raised.
Oh, okay. Nicole?
Oh, I'm sorry. I meant to take it down. Patrice, actually, I was going to make the note that Patrice added at the end regarding to see who, that was one part of our conversation with Crawford. Exactly what she just said, to identify the programs that are being done and which ones that they're referring out. I meant to take my hand down, but thank you, Patrice. You read my brain. So
Okay, and so that's kind of the direction I want. When I say clarity, it's just that when we had the PowerPoints, not the PowerPoint, when we had the Excel spreadsheet and when they came to present, there was more questions that came up because a lot of them were saying things that they offered, but they were actually not offering them directly. They were resourcing them out, so it became unclear. So it appeared like, oh, well, this person does all of this. No, this person doesn't do all this. This person does this and refers out for all the other stuff. And then as we started asking questions, it was like, oh, I do this county or I do this gender. And so when I say clarity, it's just so that we could go back and look at the Excel spreadsheet and have true data on, Bay Area Legal provides these services to this population. Rubicon provides this service in and out of custody, so that at a quick glance, we're clear about who does what, so that we can identify if there is a gap, what the gap is, so that as we're having other people present and as we are out here networking and doing stuff, we know what to look for, because it could be that we could assume we have something that we don't have because it's not being offered throughout Contra Costa, or it's not being offered to both gender. And that's the part I want to be able to say, is that we did our due diligence and this is true data because we spoke to those that are providing the service.
I agree. And then another issue, so last time we did our site visits, like, we only spoke to like one person, right? That person didn't necessarily have the answers to the questions that we had and stuff too. Because I was looking at some of the questions that are on here, right? And there's no guarantee that the person that we're gonna be talking to is gonna have like the stat instead, so for us to just come and not give them the questions beforehand or things like that, like. There's no guarantee we're gonna get the answers that we were seeking.
And how do you, Patrice, feel about like, once we have like the basic information, us coming back to the following meeting and saying, okay, these are the people that deal with housing, these are the people that deal with this, so that we can ask that one person could deal with everybody to make sure we have all the correct information.
So again, we say all these people that deal with it.
Cause, and I'm going back to like the Excel spreadsheet that Crawford had, that meant,
Yeah, I would say,
Get-
yeah, avoid that Excel spreadsheet, because I think he was trying to follow what was being stated in real time during those presentations.
okay,
So, because I went back, I received that
Mhm.
Excel spreadsheet, and they created that grid, which folks were saying, you know, that it needed more. It didn't share enough information, and what we were trying to do was take whatever Crawford came up with to provide a little more clarity to it. But so I would say we probably should do away with the grid altogether. But nonetheless, or at the very least, we can still keep those same categories.
Mhm.
If those were the categories that you really, of different types of services or service components, if you will, or elements that you want to track. Because I think that's what he was trying to do, was track of all of these things, right, that are made available, who's doing it, or having some touch to it, whether it's in-house or referring out, who's paying attention to it, right?
Mhm.
And so that's where we try to make that a little bit more clear. So but what I'm hearing is that maybe the better approach is of, and correct me if I'm wrong, of the AB 109 community programs, of the contracted service providers, which is 7 of them. What's their primary in-house service?
Mhm.
Components established with that. And then what other services do they then refer out to?
Yes.
Would that be sufficient?
Mhm.
Okay.
So that's basically the reason for the conversation going in, to just have that information to understand.
Now, but okay, yeah. So I think once we can put something together, a draft, if you will, of descriptions of the services, then maybe what we will probably need to hear from you all, or, well, I know, I should probably ask you now, what are all of the, because I think I heard languages spoken or whatever, that you want to know who does that, provide services in multiple languages.
Mhm.
If the services provided are gender specific and or gender responsive. And what else? Across the board, because see, it'd be easier
Mhm.
for me to even reach out to the providers and say, hey, programs and services would like to know, are these things you guys addressing in your services?
Okay. So some of the other things we had talked about is like, and we had to be careful about how we worded it, was making sure it was handicap accessible. And then we had also talked about, like, for the vision impaired, some of the stuff we had talked about during the survey portion of it.
So I think we collect in the in-custody survey, and it may have been in the provider survey, I think we collapsed that to how are they supporting clients with disabilities, and kept it broad.
Right. And then I'm not sure like what part would it fall under for like the court system. I know that Lao does it. They say that they
You
did.
say we're dealing with the court system, what do you mean?
So if they needed assistance or support for going to court for something, which again was something that was presented during one of the presentations, that the Hispanic community typically when they go to jail, that they don't have support from the family, and that a lot of them are going because they don't understand English. They're saying sí and yes. And per the gentleman, some of their children was removed right there in real time because they didn't have someone to translate or they wasn't aware of the resources.
So support during, family court proceedings, is what you're specifically asking about. Don't know if. You said Lao does that?
Wait, well, they do, I think they help the fathers with, they have a one-year program where they help, with like child support and other stuff. They may not. I think they do.
I have to
Cynthia?
double check where that came from, but, you know, our family reunification service through Center Force is probably the primary agency that does any act.
Okay, maybe it was Center for, is that for Cynthia? I may be combining.
Loud does.
Okay, so no, that wasn't true. Is it Cynthia? Center Force?
Yeah.
Cynthia.
Okay, it's Cynthia. I'm sorry, I messed that up.
So, yeah, so they're the primary agency that, would do any work with clients having to do with family court proceedings.
Okay.
They legal may, but I doubt, under this contract, they're doing a lot of that. It is considered civil legal, but it's usually more intensive.
And if I'm not mistaken, I think Center Force, they have a one-year program, but it's focused on fathers or male, I believe. I think that's,
They do have parenting workshops, and then they do have one that's specific for fatherhood.
okay. Okay,
So again, I would say, yeah, get your, and it's good to get your baseline information down on what each of the service providers offer. And I would say, look at the PowerPoints that were provided. And that might be something we could include that as part of the, as an attachment for your next meeting, to have all of those presentations, go one by each agency, based on what information they've already provided you, what additional questions you might have. But in the meantime, you can also put together some kind of a summary document, if you descriptions of the 7 community programs.
I think that'd be helpful, because like, we only have this like one time per month that we get to meet and stuff like that, and like, we can't meet offline because of the Brown Act issues and stuff like that, so yeah, that'd be great to have all that,
Yeah.
so that we can actually get together, talk about it, and go through it.
Yeah.
any other comments, questions before we move on? Renee, you're quiet. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I have another question. Patrice, how's it gonna work if Renee has to leave at 12?
We need 3 for quorum?
Yeah, 3.
2? You only need 2.
There's only 3 of you.
You only need 2 for quorum.
Okay, okay, perfect. Okay, so nothing else about that portion. We can move on. No hands up online. Okay, the next thing is discuss the CBO site visits and tours. I've already reached out to Mines via email. I will follow up on a conversation. I can make it just basic until we get the questions, like a meet and greet, to kind of introduce myself and just keep building until we have the question. So we're not waiting a whole nother month before we go on site. Because if we
Was
wait.
there a question? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Asking me a question.
I had already reached out to the ones that I'm going to be visiting.
Mhm.
I want to follow up just to kind of start the meet and greet, to start the relationship. It's going to be ongoing, so I could always do a follow-up and then ask the questions that we will review next month and finalize for each agency. Is that okay?
You're wanting to follow up with a particular agency about.
I did an introduction.
So you introduced yourself to one of the agencies. And
To set up a time for us to meet formally, for me to come out to the actual site.
okay,
So I kind of want to still move towards that, just so that I'm building the relationship, and then I can always schedule a second follow-up meeting once we have the questions, and then go more in depth with the things that we talked about today on the questions that we need.
Yeah, I think that's fine if you want to go ahead and meet with them now.
Okay,
But then you want to have a separate meeting for if that.
yeah, I kind of want to just do like a meet and greet, like an introduction, kind of get a feel for what they're doing, so it doesn't feel like we're just showing up to interview or to integrate them, but we're actually building a relationship with them.
Yeah, now one way you could do that, is, well, so think about when you make when you introduce yourself, specifically for CAP, and you're saying, I'd like to come on site to check out the program or whatever, whatever, however you want to say. And if this initial meet and greet is, you'd also like to meet members of the
Staff.
staff or the 8109 program that they're offering, based on their availability, they may or may not be able to make that happen. And or may even recommend, well, for that intro meeting, let it be a Zoom call. And then later, if you're going to do, I guess this is a better way to say it. I think it's really important that you give your intention, you state your intentions up front, because the back-to-back kind of, or coming for a meet and greet, then I'm coming to ask interview questions after you interviewed one staff member before, may give the impression that there is some kind of a watchdog kind of thing happening here, which is not what you're trying to do, right? You're just trying to understand what's happening, right? It's fair. So I think stating whatever your intentions are up front, and letting them know up front that you'll also like to come for a subsequent meeting, to ask more thorough questions. Or you'll ask those questions too, will it be with a particular staff person? Is it multiple, all those kind of things. The reason why I say all that is because we as ORJ do stuff, actually does the site visits too. There's just did one, right, Gary, which was pretty, pretty intense. And they were more than a welcoming opening, but just so that there's no confusion as to the roles here. We as ORJ, as the contract administrator, that's our job as part of monitoring these contracts and performance. Whereas for you all as members of an advisory body, you want to understand what's happening so that way you can advise CCP, like, hey, this is what we learned, this is what we noticed in terms of how services are being delivered. This is where we feel could be some enhancements here, some improvements there, things like that. So just kind of keep that in mind and be sure you're very, very clear with them up front what your intentions are so that they can understand the distinction of what's happening, because we're reaching out to them too, but it's for a different purpose and we don't want to confuse the message.
Okay. Got it. You have any questions? Any questions from anyone online?
No questions.
Okay. Then that was it. So the next steps are, Gary, did you want to start with some of the next steps and then I can chime in, or do you want me?
Yeah, I jotted down some next steps, and if I missed anything, please let me know. We're going to revise the in-custody survey questions. ORJ is going to send the programs and services the in-custody survey questions for their feedback on the open-ended questions, and then let us know if they would like to move forward with those questions or how we would like to revise those questions. CAB programs and services is going to review the PowerPoints from the CBO providers, and we're going to include those PowerPoints in the next agenda packet to see if there's any additional questions you would like to ask the CBO providers. Schedule meet and greets with the CBO providers to build rapport and state your intentions, and then plan for a second meeting to discuss the question that you're going to revise. And I think that's it.
That's it.
Oh,
anything else that you-
sorry. ORJ is going to draft a description of services for what's referred out in the primary services for the CBO providers. And then that's it.
Any questions, comments from those that are online?
No
If
questions
not,
online.
If not, we're going to adjourn our meeting and our next meeting is on Thursday, June the 20th at 11 a.m. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
That was quick.
Thank you.
Thank you.